All right, if you have a Peak Design tripod and you've gotten um, sand in it in the ball head, um, my tripod, I left it on a blanket on the beach and it got real windy out of nowhere and sand just blew all inside of this tripod head and it was crunchy and grinding and it just didn't sound like that didn't sound good. So I reached out to Peak Design and they suggested that I blow it out with some canned air, and that I had already tried rinsing it with water, like fresh water out of the tap, and then I tried to drop some oil in there. They suggested drop in some silicone lubricant in there, and if the sand is in there and it's not coming out, like lubricant is just gonna kind of permanently keep it in there because it'll get stuck trapped in the grease. So or lubricant. So I took this apart myself, and Peak Design doesn't recommend you do this. They would probably rather replace it, but they didn't offer me the option to replace it. They gave me some clean. I didn't feel like arguing for it. I like to disassemble things, so I took it apart and cleaned it out. Um, Put some fresh grease in it, and I'm just gonna go through that process with you. So if you go through the same thing, then you can do it if you want to. But I'll reiterate: Peak Design doesn't really want you to do that. So I'm just gonna go ahead and start disassembling this. I just at least just get the tripod free. All right. So I've already actually cleaned it. But I'm going to show the disassembly process and then what I did to actually get the sand out of it because I did run it through an ultrasonic. So I'm going to go ahead and start disassembling this. Okay, so when you look at it, you'll find that there are 6 screws in the bottom, 6 hex screws. And you will want to get. I'm just gonna need a wrench for that. They All right, on the bottom. On the bottom, you'll see that there's these 6 hex screws. They're all the same dimension, so you just need that one screwdriver. I think it's a number. I think it's a 3 millimeter hex, which will take these out. And they do have blue Loctite on them. No, that's not 3 millimeter. It is 2 millimeter. Two-millimeter hex. And they have blue Loctite, so you will need to break the Loctite with some force. And I've already loosened mine, so I'm not going to do that again. But once they're opened up a little bit, you can use like an electric screwdriver to get them the rest of the way out. And I've just got this little handy one here to do that for me. And you want to hold, once you take these out, you'll want to hold the you want to hold the actual riser part of this because it'll fall over and hit something. So you take these screws out, you can just pull this away. Here you can observe the inside here. There's not really much to see, but I did have to clean this part as well. I ran that through the ultrasonic. I'll detail that later. Here's the innards. You have your little collar here, which turns the gears, and then it loosens whenever you do turn this. It just screws this little middle central piece. This little central gear has a screw on the bottom. It actually screws down into the unit. So you can take this collar off. There's 2 sides. This collar goes in this certain way. So you'll see on the inside of the collar the teeth are lower on one side than the other. There's more free collar, the majority of the collar space goes down. So when you're putting it back together, keep in mind of that. And you could also see that there'll probably be wear on the inside there, and maybe that's just because I had sand. I don't know. But we'll take that off. Each of these 3 gears in the pinion will come out. So just keep those together. And then you can take this little center piece off. And when you do take it off, you'll see that there's these 2 notches. These 2 notches will flank these 2 metal pieces right here. So it'll go on like that. So we'll take that out, and then this is the little slider that locks the whatever you it locks your clamp down to clamp the camera, so you can't open it again on accident. So we'll take that out. You'll see that there's like these little notches here, which I've re-greased, but that's there's this little spring and a little detent piece here that slide down in there. So that this comes off, and then I'm not going to when I did this, I didn't completely disassemble it because I didn't want to take this spring off. But you could pull these little pins out, and then you'll need like a little hook to get this spring off. And but I didn't want to have to put it back on. So this is reverse threaded, so you righty-tighty to take it off. And then this little middle component falls out of this gear, and you have a little spring washer, a regular normal washer. My washer had rust on it. I'm not sure what this is actually doing, but it's some kind of plastic washer with these little nibs inside of it. Another regular washer, and then this piece that actually touches the ball head. So I'll go run through all this, cleaning it, and then I'll come back over and put it back together. Alright, so I've got these parts all here. I'm gonna run them through the ultrasonic. I got a cup with water in it and some dish soap for the small parts, and then the big stuff I'll just put in the cage. I got some Dawn soap in there too. So I'll just put these in here. I'm wondering about that spring coming loose, but I can get it back on as long as I know what it looks like, and I'll use this video for that. These big parts right there. And then all these little small ones can go in there. I don't want them getting lost in the sauce if it gets dirty. So pinions. I was debating on doing the screws, maybe just rinsing the screws. But I'll just put some fresh Loctite on there. And then this guy can go in here. I'm going to do this part too. Also got some grease here to grease it. That's a grease for like watches and stuff like that. Certain parts of watches, larger watches usually, like pocket watches. It should be fine here. It's a lithium grease, so I'll let that. Actually, I'm gonna watch. I'm a watcher. This will knock all the grease off because of the soap. I can't just rinse it with water. The grease will stay there. What I need that is for that grease to come off because it's holding a bunch of sand. That'll be about 5 minutes. I'll be back. Alright, I did add this piece in here while it was turning, just to get it in on some of the action, and I could still see some sand came out. Because what happened, sand gets kicked off of there, and it's still floating around in the water, so I'm gonna have to rinse it off. But at least the oil or the grease is not just holding on to it. So I'm going to take this all out. I'm going to take the whole cage out here. Put the cage over here, and I'll take the parts out. Because I'm going to have to rinse these too. Get like the residual sand off. Alright. I'm going to go ahead and rinse these, and then I'll be back at my desk with the rinsed parts that are dried. Yeah, I got to let them dry too. Rinse them dry, and I'll be back over to reassemble it and grease it and everything. And then now we're reassembling it. So we'll just go back the same way we started. Slide that back in there. And it'll just fall back out if you let it. So yeah, remember this is going back on here. It's reverse threaded, so you got to turn it left to tighten it down onto there. And you just go all the way down. And you'll put your spring and your detent nib back in there. And this is where things get kind of funky because you have to keep pressure on it while you're reassembling. So that little nib is going to ride in these little notches, so you want them to be in that way. In there, and that's working fine. Oh, actually no, it's not. The nib came out. This is the finicky part, is just this little nib. That's the most finicky part anyway. I think it's better to go in right here so it's not compressed as much. At this angle, because if you look, there's like this little bridge right here. So if you like nestle it in there, that way it's not pressed too much. I think. Yeah. And that's how it's supposed to fit in there. And then go back with this. Remember, the little notches are supposed to flank these two little metal blocks. So it goes down this way, and you can tell you got it right because the screws will all line up. And you got your three little pinions. They slide into these little non-threaded holes. And they have the little holes have the collar around them, so you know where to put them. And you can put. I've already greased these. I put a little. I have some grease that I applied to these already. It's actually easier to. I'm gonna take these out. I put these in too early. Maybe leave one of them in there. It's easier to put this collar on first. Now remember, the longer side has to go down, and you want it around those teeth of that wheel. And I've got a hair on there. I'm gonna get that out of there. And you can slide these other wheels in. And you got to make sure you're keeping pressure on this, otherwise that little bitty spring down the bottom will start pushing the whole contraption up. Okay, here's what got me too. I've already got my screws in this, but in the bottom there are some holes for these pinions to go into, and if you're reapplying this and the pinions aren't going into those holes, then you're going to be applying extra pressure, and you won't be able to tighten it all the way. See, there's like little holes for the pinions. You want to make sure that you're lined up for those too when you put this back on. So I've got them lined up this way. Kind of jostle it around a little bit, make sure the screws start falling into place. Oops, sorry about that noise. Then you can start screwing these guys back in. And then you want it kind of like a car wheel. You want to go kind of around in a star pattern to make sure it's even. Even pressure all the way around. You know, don't put them all the way in. Just put them in tight enough, and then you'll go through and retighten them all later. This is where you come in with your wrench and torque them down a little more. You know, don't torque them in too much. They just had Loctite in them before, but you want them to be solid. And it's a good idea to reapply blue Loctite. I'm sure they would recommend that. I don't have any handy, so I have red Loctite, which is too tight. So I'm going to get some blue Loctite. This isn't the best tool for this. Alright, so if you did it right, then you should have a nice smooth turning tripod head for your Peak Design tripod. And this already had like a little bit of a grinding sound to it just because of the way it works, but this should be smooth. If it's too tight when you put it back together, these screws aren't supposed to be super tight, so you might have torqued them down too much, so just back them out a little bit. And that's what the blue Loctite is for, so they're not supposed to be super torqued down, but just apply some blue Loctite and this should loosen up and be smooth like it's supposed to be. Anyway, yeah, just if you have any questions, just leave a comment below. I'll answer to it. I'll see you next time.